The right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental of the Constitution. Where do you stand on that issue? Or better yet, where do the political parties stand on it? It's time for some Straight Talk, Texas. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Well, good afternoon again. Welcome back, my friends, conservatives, conversationalists around the fruited plains of the great state of Texas. It is great to be back with you, and I'm now focusing on the Constitution, but the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which for most of us, if you're in Texas, is a very important right that we want not to be infringed. And if you're a Republican, you're in the best position to defend that, and I will show you why from the Constitution itself and the party platforms as to why the Republicans, I believe, have the strongest position over any other. Now, what is the Constitution and what is the Second Amendment of the Constitution, and what exactly does it say? Because so many people get this wrong. It reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, we often rightly remember the names and stories of those who fought for our freedom, but we fail to remember oftentimes why they fought. If we do not know our history, we are doomed to repeat it. And unfortunately, so many have lost the perspective of history, and they feel as though, well, there's really no real threat. Who are we afraid of is what a lot of those on the left and the ignorant will often say. And I would argue that we should be afraid of any form of tyranny that restricts our right to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment is specific in saying a well-regulated militia. Now, some will argue that, well, that means that you have to be a part of a militia to keep and bear arms. That's not true at all. In fact, there is no militia unless people have arms to congregate with. And so as a militia, if we want to form a militia, we got to find people who have guns. You don't, the chicken and the egg issue, I guess, is at play here. And if you have guns, then you can form a militia. But you don't form a militia because if there's no threat. So the idea that you don't need guns or to have guns on you or have a storage of guns that you have to be a part of a militia to have guns is just absolute nonsense. Many people fought against our rights, the same rights that we and so many before us died protecting. And I think James Holbrook highlights this in his book, That Every Man Be Armed. He highlights how Madison, Jefferson, and many others studied European history and seen that free cities and nations had often succumbed to tyrannical rule imposed by their own military establishments. Holbrook writes, the Roman Republic had degenerated into an empire when its military ceased to consist of volunteer short-term citizen soldiers and instead became a professionalized force loyal to its commanders instead of the people. Now, I think it's important to understand that Holbrook is speaking of America right now. Because right now we have police force, we have a professional military who are beholden to those who are above them, not to the people. And that's a very tenuous thing going on right now, because if if a soldier in the American Armed Forces is told to violate the Constitution, we believe, or it's very likely that they will go ahead and do that because their higher ups have told them to do that. We know that happens with the police. If the police have no idea oftentimes what the real law is. They're supposed to, but so many times if a superior officer tells them, you need to do this, you need to go ahead and move forward, those police officers who are not in charge or who are new or what have you will oftentimes just go with the flow. That's why it's so important that our officers who carry a badge understand and appreciate what the constitutional rights of citizens are. And this, unfortunately, does have some problems. But because we don't know history, we don't understand sometimes the fact that those who came before us, who provided us this Constitution, understood the history, understood and saw what others had gone through. And this is why we get today. I mean, these sentiments, and here's what Holbrook says: these sentiments on the Second Amendment, which opposed standing mercenary armies and vindicated the use of armed force to oppose tyranny, were also reflected in the Bill of Rights and indeed provide jurisprudential commentary thereon. Aristotle, Cicero, John Locke, and Algernon Sidney provided the philosophical justification for the armed sovereignty of the populace. On the other hand, Plato, Jean Bodin, Thomas Hobbes, and Sir Edward Filmer set forth the classical argument in favor of monarchical absolutism. So, the question is, are we partisans of liberty, or are we partisans of authority? And this idea, this tension that we see throughout history identifies why we have the Bill of Rights. It was this tension against authority. In his classic book on gun rights, entitled First They Came for the Gun Owners, Mark Smith provides perspective. Smith writes, think of the crucial moments when powerful, well-educated, wealthy, and influential people fought on the wrong side, fought against the expansion of freedom, the empowerment of citizens, and the lifting of unjust laws. And what came out of those who actually stood in opposition to tyranny? Who stood in opposition to their own friends, to the people who were around them. Understand, the revolution came in the midst not of a majority necessarily, but of a fragmented minority of people who were willing to stand up and fight against the Tories. The Tories who were beholden to King George and who were beholden to the crown and the British rule. And so because of a few who were willing to say no to tyranny, we have our rights. But it's not just here in America. Understand, this is the case, this is the history, and where we get the Magna Carta, the Mayflower Compact, our Declaration of Independence, a Bill of Rights. You know, it's important to remember that revolution started at Lexington and Concord. And it happened when the British Army seized a cache of gunpowder and cannons that were stored by local militia. And so it's important to understand that since America's inception, conflict between political philosophies have brewed. And so this is not new. The popular sovereignty and top-down authority has always been a challenge for us as America. But it was the distrust of centralized government which gave us the Bill of Rights. This distrust of civil government it was important so that the individuals had rights that many thought that only the majority could hold. In the 20th century, the progressive movement, led by Woodrow Wilson, took aim at the U.S. Constitution itself in an effort to expand their power to impose social change on recalcitrant free Americans. Jason Jones and John Zmirak, co-authors of the book, The Race to Save Our Century, 5 core principles to promote peace, freedom, and a culture of life, writes, and of course, today, the enemies of free speech and free religious exercise are, no surprise, the enemies of citizens' gun rights. Instead, they have learned to fetishize the use of force by the U.S. military in foreign adventures, the FBI at school board meetings, and now armed IRS agents menacing the citizenry. The Second Amendment is foundational to our freedom, and we as Americans should stand up to protect those rights. Well, where do the political parties stand on these issues? And as I talked about on the last show, I highlighted the differences when it came to the First Amendment, and they were stark. The Second Amendment demonstrates, and I will say, that Republicans and Libertarians are in lockstep with one another, just as the Greens and the Democrats are in lockstep. Greens want to make all public education sites gun-free to provide what they say is a safe learning environment. In other words, they want to make sure that everyone in a school doesn't have the ability to defend themselves, that teachers can't defend themselves, and a shooter will have a very easy time killing as many students as they want. Now, do I believe that Greens really want that to happen? I don't. I don't think that people who are in the Green Party, and in fact, you know, it was Mike Rowe who said something that I thought was a good point. He said, when he was talking about those who are environmentalists on the left, the people who would associate themselves with the Green Party, he highlighted the fact that, you know, if I really believed with all my heart that the world was going to end in a matter of just a couple of years, he said, I don't know that there's anything I wouldn't do to stop it. And so he said, I understand the passion. The problem is not their passion, but how misplaced it is, because they've been informed. These young people have been informed, have been indoctrinated with information that is so misinformed. And as I talked about on the show before this about what science is anything that something can be deemed scientific if it has been tested and not disproven. So long as it hasn't been disproven, then something can be scientific. The problem with environmental science is every time a hypothesis is put forward, it is disproven again and again and again. But the people who are part of this green movement, the Green Party movement, and those on the left have no idea about about the facts of these things. They are continually being indoctrinated with information that is fundamentally untrue. So they believe. So this issue of gun rights is another one where they believe that if and remember I talked about the utopian idea that they have this utopian mindset that if we make gun-free zones in schools, well, then our kids will be safe, because they believe that some way they believe that if you just take away if you make a law that you can't carry a gun in a school, well, then the bad guys will see that and go, oh, well, I can't shoot that place up. What they don't understand, because they're pantheistic in their worldview or naturalistic in their worldview, they simply have this utopian idea that we just get rid of the guns and we won't have any more mass shootings. But where are shooters that want to do the most harm? Where are they focusing their attention? They're focusing on the attention of soft targets. So Greens, like Democrats, by the way, want to make our schools soft targets. Now, here's key. Thoughtful, carefully considered gun control such as is contained in the Brady Bill. So only carefully considered gun control. Think about how I guess naive you have to be to believe something like that. It's essentially a way to cover themselves. Well, we carefully considered it. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but we carefully considered it. You want to know what drives people crazy about bureaucrats is their inability to think commonsensically. They simply go, well, I'm sorry, that's been carefully considered. We can't do anything about it. It's not my job. Sorry, we can't do anything about it. It's been carefully considered. That's the mindlessness of the Green Party. They believe that if you eliminate the gun show loophole, which, by the way, doesn't exist, there's no such thing as a gun show loophole. Try to go to a gun show and purchase a gun and walk out with one. Guess what? You won't be able to do that. But again, Green Party people and Democrats, they are indoctrinated with the idea that this is a loophole, that guns are true. Simply not true. There's not a scintilla of truth to that, unless you have a gun license, you're a licensed gun owner, as I am. I can go into a gun show and I can get a gun, but why can't I do that? Because I have jumped through all the hoops. They've got a background check. They've got my fingerprints. I've even had to take a class. I've even had to show competency in shooting to get that license. I have to hit a target multiple times, and if I were to miss that target, my wife got her license by one shot. Had she missed that shot, she couldn't have gotten her license. And there were 2 ladies in our class that did not get their license, did not pass because they could not pass the shooting test. So see, this myth that there's a gun show loophole is out there, and it continues to be perpetuated. Extend background checks to all private sales of firearms. How exactly do you do that? Well, this is, again, a utopian myth. The Green Party of Texas does not oppose lawful ownership of firearms, but the problem is, and this is the great little lie, we don't oppose lawful ownership, but we're going to make the laws to make it unlawful to have a gun. So the only people who have a gun are the ones that we say, and they're going to be people in government that we control, and we say, you go take those guns away. You tell them this. And this is how tyranny works. It works almost like boiling a frog. Let's change the laws imperceptibly, so that people don't understand or are not taking notice of what exactly it is we're doing. We support the right of local municipalities to regulate the sale, transfer, transportation, licensing, and registration of firearms, ammunition, and/or firearms supplies. In order to stop gun running, we support limiting the number of handguns that can be purchased to no more than 1 handgun per person per month or 12 handguns per year, except for licensed gun collectors, of course. But you only need one per month. Why 1 per month? That's what I don't get. That why 1 per month? Why not 1 per year? You know what? That's what's going to happen next. Once they get that passed, they'll go, wait a minute, 1 per. Why doesn't anyone need more than 1 per year? Let's just do 1 per year. Okay, we're going to change it. We'll be 1 per year. Everybody good with that? 1 per year. You're going to get a gun. We're all in favor of the gun laws, of lawful gun ownership. And then we'll go, well, wait a minute. Why 1 per year? Why would anyone need more than 1 gun, period? Okay, so 1 gun. One gun? Everybody good with 1 gun? And then it's, well, wait a minute, we've got an amazing police department. We've got an amazing military. Why would anyone need guns at all? No guns, no guns. We're going to take care of you. We, the government, will take care of you. Trust us. We're the government. We're here to help. I think it was Ronald Reagan. It was Ronald Reagan, and I think it's the scariest words in the English language are, hello, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Truer words could not be spoken. And that's essentially what's happening with the Green Party's nonsense of their of restricting the rights of citizens. They say that we support the inclusion of a standardized gun safety course for all people as a requirement for obtaining a gun. I will tell you, that's the one thing that they say, because we all know that whenever government gets involved in something, the quality of that always it goes up tremendously. I mean, because nothing government does that isn't just efficient and great for everyone. This is lunacy, and so this is what you hear when they'll often say, we just need common sense gun laws. Common sense. That's another little buzzword that the left likes to use. But well, we've heard from the Green Party. Now let's hear from the other part of the left on this issue, and that, of course, is the Democrats. Gun violence, they say, is a public health crisis in the United States. So we've gone from this is a crisis and gun violence. Now they're going to call it a public health crisis. So now we have not just we've got it enables them to bring in more government oversight. We've got a whole nother department, government department that's going to come in, Health and Human Services, that's going to come in, and they're going to start enacting their laws. So now you've got law enforcement, the Attorney General, you've got the FBI, you've got the CIA, and now you've got a government department, Health and Human Services, because it's a health crisis. See how this will just get worse. We can and will make gun violence a thing of the past, that utopian idea. If we just get rid of the guns, if we just do this, we will live in utopia. Oh my goodness, this will be wonderful. Everyone will love everyone. So just get rid of your guns and everyone will be happy. There will be rainbows and unicorns for everyone. That's what they want you to believe. Because either they're irretrievably stupid, because understand, these are adults that are writing these, or they really don't mean what they say. They are fundamentally evil, and just keep paying attention, because you'll become aware very, very soon as you watch what Democrats want to do. They'll enact universal background checks, end online sales of guns and ammunition, close dangerous loopholes. There are those loopholes, because that's a great buzzword. Let's eliminate loopholes. We will incentivize states to enact licensing requirements for owning firearms. Incentivize, how do they do that, I wonder? We will pass legislation requiring that guns be safely stored in homes. How exactly do you ensure that guns are safely stored in homes? Well, you have to create a rule, a law. And what does it mean, safely stored? And then how do you police that? Oh, well, there you go, the police. The police will knock on your door and say, well, we've got it. We're doing a gun safety check. Kind of like registering your car every year. You have to have it inspected. We're going to have a state inspection. This is a state inspection. We see, oh, you're on the National Registry, right? So we're going to make sure that since you've got registered these many guns, we're going to make sure you have the amount of guns that they're properly stored. Where's the storage? We need to know where they are. That's government talking. That's government. Gun companies. Now, this is the best one. Gun companies should be held responsible for their products just like any other business, and will prioritize repealing laws that shield gun manufacturers from civil liabilities. Just like any other business. Responsible for their products just like any other business. What other business are they talking about? If a vehicle does not work properly and ends in the death of the operator of that vehicle, then yes, that vehicle manufacturer would be held liable, especially if it happens again and again, because there's a flaw in that vehicle. If a gun manufacturer makes a gun that when you point it and pull the trigger and it shoots you, they would be held responsible because the gun is not working properly. But that's not what Democrats are saying. What Democrats are saying is, if a person takes a gun and points it at you and shoots you and kills you, that gun is working properly. But Democrats say the gun manufacturers need to be responsible because the gun worked properly, rather than the person behind the gun that was pulling the trigger. That's the person who should be held accountable. Not so say Democrats. No, we're going to make gun manufacturers responsible. Does any of that make sense to you? If it does, then you're an imbecile. Sorry, you shouldn't be watching this show. Guns have no place in our schools, they say. We disagree strongly with, there it is, guns have no place in our schools. We disagree strongly with the Trump administration's dangerous and short-sighted suggestion that teachers should bring firearms into the classroom. God forbid a shooter come into the classroom and a teacher have a gun to defend themselves and their children. Don't let that happen. I think the Greens are literally a bunch of young kids completely smashed out of their minds on marijuana and things like that. That's my belief. Whenever I've met someone with the Green Party, I have never met someone who can make a salient point on anything. Typically, everyone I've met with that's a Green Party activist has a screw loose somewhere. So Green Party activists to me are that fringe group. Democrats, on the other hand, are dangerous, are genuinely dangerous, because here's the thing. It is really good for the Democrat Party when a school massacre happens. Don't believe me? Look at the Robert Francis O'Rourke campaign. Robert Francis O'Rourke is running for governor against Governor Greg Abbott, Republican. Robert Francis O'Rourke is the Democrat. By the way, for those uninformed, he also calls himself Beto, but his name is Robert Francis O'Rourke. He has absolutely no Hispanic in him, and he's actually Irish, but he calls himself Beto. But Robert Francis O'Rourke has been running commercial after commercial with the mother of one of the victims of the Uvalde shooting, recent Uvalde shooting, blaming Greg Abbott for it. Robert Francis O'Rourke came to a press conference where the governor, lieutenant governor, where the law enforcement of all stages were talking about it had just happened, and Robert Francis O'Rourke went in and basically lambasted them, played politics with the deaths of children. If you are a Democrat, if you're a Democrat and you say, oh, that's not true, then you're not looking at this clearly. Any of you Democrats who say, oh, that was the right thing to do, or that's okay, you should have your head examined. You're evil. You're downright evil to say, hey, let's make our children more vulnerable. Let's not arm our teachers, because goodness knows, if we have another school massacre, that's going to be great for our politics. That's the definition of evil. The Democrat Party clearly has evil intent when it does things like that. That's not ignorance. This is willfulness. Now, the Texas Democrat Party says our lives, homes, community, state, country are made secure by responsible gun ownership. Okay. I think Republicans and Libertarians would all agree on that. Oh, wait a minute. They're not finished yet. Implement common sense gun safety measures that keep firearms out of the hands of criminals and others deemed dangerous to themselves and others. mandate the temporary surrender. Temporary. There's one thing about government that is, there's nothing more permanent in government than a temporary anything. So, mandate the temporary surrender of all guns by a person who has had a protective order issued against them. Ban all Teflon armor-piercing ammunition. By the way, Teflon does nothing to help the armor, making something armor-piercing. Absolutely nothing, but it sounds good, doesn't it? And by the way, armor-piercing is a misnomer, because what does that mean, armor-piercing? A 30-06 can pierce through most of the armor that the vest that police carry. And by the way, they're only covered on their chests. We had 5 police officers in the city of Dallas murdered by a guy. It was by a black guy. A hate crime. Oh, but we don't call it. That's right. I'm sorry. It's if a black guy kills a bunch of white people, that's not a hate crime. But if a white guy, white police officer, kills a black guy who's just committed a crime, that is hate. That's a hate crime. But all 5 of those officers had body armor, and all 5 of them died. And it wasn't because the bullets pierced through their body armor. Mike Smith was a friend of mine, one of the officers that was killed. He went to Watermark, and his body armor didn't prevent him from being killed. So, these so-called cop killer bullets is a myth. Enact and enforce responsible gun storage laws. There we go again. Prohibit the open carry of all firearms and repeal campus carry policies. That's right. We want to make sure that kids in college cannot defend themselves either. And by the way, the whole open carry thing, I actually used to carry openly. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, why am I giving a bad guy the opportunity to know that I'm armed? I would much rather him not know that I'm armed, and so that if I have to stop him, it will come as a surprise and it won't be expected. I won't be one of the people that he's targeting, because especially if I'm in a large group of people, he'll just think I'm just one of the other hapless victims of his insanity. But that's what they want to do. Repeal laws that insulate manufacturers and distributors from firearms from civil liability. Again, like I said, if a firearm works as it's supposed to, how exactly would firearm manufacturers be liable for anything? That makes absolutely no sense. But that's what Democrats think is the answer to our quote-unquote gun problem in America. Support the right of any citizen to own guns, but of course, not all guns, okay? Not all guns. And oppose any legal restriction, there you go again, legal restrictions that we create preventing their possession based on arbitrary classifications or medical conditions unrelated to their safe use. Okay, just wait, because you're about to see some arbitrary legislation. Restore prior federal prohibition on the purchase of assault weapons. That is an arbitrary classification, an assault weapon. There are more guns that are not classified by them as assault weapons that are much more dangerous than the assault weapons. So, but somehow, this arbitrary classification of assault weapon is what they want to go after, even though they just got finished saying, let's not have arbitrary classifications. As well as prohibit the manufacture, sale, or possession of bump stocks, binary trigger systems, trigger cranks, attachable silencer, magazine clips that hold over 10 rounds. That whole 10-round thing, there's a lot of handguns that hold 10 rounds. It's an arbitrary number. Why 10? Because it's a round number. That's why. 10. 10's round. 10's easy to remember. Why not 9? Why not 9? Why not 9? Why not 8? 8. Hey, 8 is an even number. Why not 6? Why not 6? Let's go with 6. No, let's go with 4. Let's go with 2. Why does anyone need? If you've got a gun, you just need one. There you go. This is what's going to happen. This is the slippery slope that they run down. Support the right of Texans to inherit, purchase, and exchange firearms through the stream of commerce. Read that. The stream of commerce. Watch this. Remove loopholes that exempt gun shows and private sales. Private sales, gun show loopholes which doesn't exist, to non-family members from background checks and the other safety requirements prior to the sale of a firearm. How exactly do I administer a background check to someone that I'm selling a gun to? Because now I become liable if that person does something nefarious, takes nefarious action against others, or if they lose it. If they lose that gun and someone else gets a hold of it, well, my background check that I did, now I'm liable for that background check. Just look at how the laws are worded nowadays. How exactly does this work? It doesn't. This is nonsense. Remove any impediments to the freedom of local governments, school districts, churches, and proprietors to control the use of possession of firearms on their premises or in their public spaces. A private place of business can restrict anything. But to say churches, and you just, again, let's create as many soft targets as we possibly can. And that's a great way to do it. Libertarians, we affirm the individual right recognized by the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms and oppose the prosecution of individuals for exercising their rights of self-defense. Private property owners should be free to establish their own conditions regarding the presence of personal defense weapons on their own property. We oppose all laws at any level of government restricting, registering, or monitoring the ownership, manufacture, or transfer of firearms, ammunition, or firearm accessories. The right of individuals to keep and bear arms have been infringed upon by the state, namely through Section 46 of the Texas Penal Code. Therefore, the Libertarian Party of Texas calls for the repeal of this code and then highlights the specific sections in that code. And by the way, in our next state convention or precinct convention, then county convention, I'm actually going to be proposing this very proposal, because libertarians, when it comes to the Second Amendment, we are in lockstep. We are absolutely aligned. We're absolutely aligned. And so I'm going to be highlighting the Libertarian Party's platform positions in green so that you can see that we're in agreement. Lawful gun ownership enables Americans to exercise their God-given right of self-defense for the safety of their homes, their loved ones, and their communities. While Democrats believe that gun violence is a public health crisis in the United States. Remember that? We support firearm reciprocity legislation to recognize the right of law-abiding Americans to carry firearms to protect themselves and their families in all 50 states. We support constitutional carry statutes and salute the states that have passed them. We oppose ill-conceived laws that would restrict magazine capacity or ban the sale of the most popular and common modern rifle, while Democrats want to restore the prior federal prohibition on the purchase of assault weapons. We oppose any effort to deprive individuals of their right to keep and bear arms without due process of law, and the Green Party wants to carefully consider gun control, like adding background checks to all private sales of firearms. We condemn frivolous lawsuits against gun manufacturers and the current administration's illegal harassment of firearm dealers, while Democrats want gun companies to be held responsible for people who improperly use a properly functioning firearm to murder people, just like any other business is held responsible, right? When their product functions properly, but someone uses it to commit a crime. Can you name one business where that happens? Nope, you can't. We oppose federal licensing or registration of law-abiding gun owners, while Democrats will actually incentivize states to enact licensing requirements for owning firearms. How do they incentivize states? Why, with our tax dollars, of course. That's the way we do it. Texas Republicans want to repeal and or nullify National Firearms Act of 1934 and the Gun Control Act of 1968. Pass unrestricted constitutional carry, while Democrats want to double down by prohibiting the open carry of all firearms and repeal campus carry policies. Republicans want to nullify any gun laws that violate the Second Amendment or rights of due process. while Democrats will pass legislation requiring that guns be safely stored in homes, and Greens will limit the number of handguns that can be purchased to no more than one handgun per person per month, support local regulations restricting gun rights, and also require that to obtain a gun, citizens must take a standardized gun safety course. Republicans support national reciprocity for gun ownership rights. We recognize the right of license to carry holders to carry anywhere off duty or retired law enforcement can carry. Here is the benefit, I believe, of a gun license. To be able to carry as a registered gun license holder, to be able to go into anywhere that a peace officer can go into, that is, I would argue, a benefit. Should be a benefit to having a gun license. Plank 120 says that Republicans believe in actually protecting and defending children in schools by allowing teachers to carry firearms to protect themselves and their students from a bad guy with a gun, while Democrats and Greens prefer to see more children. If what they're doing, if they get what they want, they must understand that they want. If this is their legislation, they must be wanting more children to be murdered to drive their goal of criminalizing gun ownership. What else could it be? Because it's not going to make children safer. It's going to make our children more vulnerable. And that's not good. Republicans see gun-free zones for what they are, soft targets that prey on the most vulnerable in our society, young children. And if Democrats don't actually want to see more children murdered, then they are irretrievably stupid enough to believe that if you make a school gun-free, that bad guys will see it and find someplace else to shoot up. Now, those of you who look at the Libertarian platform and go, man, I like that. I agree with that. I'm just telling you, I agree with their planks on that as well. The problem is, how many libertarians are elected in office right now? Well, not very many, none in Texas, and there's a reason for it. And there's a reason I believe that being a Republican is a much better place to be if you stand for the Second Amendment, because we can actually hold our elected officials accountable. If you don't believe me, don't forget that United States Senator John Cornyn joined 20 other members of the U.S. Senate to restrict our gun rights, to basically violate the Second Amendment, to take away the rights of individuals. And Republicans, you know what? Republicans in Texas did not like that. Did not like that at all. In fact, I will say this without equivocation, that John Cornyn has absolutely no chance of winning come this next election. When he is up, no chance of winning. He has given away his chance for re-election, and it shouldn't matter to him. He's been in forever anyway. And I'm going to make this known. I am hoping and praying that we have someone who can run against him that could win. And you know who that person is? It's a guy whose name is on my door there. Pat Fallon, Congressman Pat Fallon, one of the most conservative members of the United States Congress. A guy who is willing to stand up, a guy and speak out, and a guy who understands better than anyone what it means to be a conservative. And I mean what it means to be a conservative. This is a man who gets fined by Nancy Pelosi because he refuses to wear a mask on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. Very few congressmen are willing to do that. Mr. Fallon went into Congress as a millionaire, and there are some people who try to create the illusion that he made his money nefariously by doing things within the government. Not true. It's all been debunked, but they don't care. They don't care. The facts of the matter are, when it comes to our platform, this is why I vote for people. I don't care if it's kind of like Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump is the model of Christian virtue. But when it comes to our party platform, our national platform, Donald Trump is the greatest president in my lifetime. You want to judge Pat Fallon? Judge him on his record, folks. Judge him on his record for a change. Don't try to get him out of office because you don't like him, because you're upset with some of the things that he's done, or he hasn't come to something on time or something like that. These stupid people who try and take apart a great conservative like Pat Fallon. And I'll tell you what, Pat Fallon is, I'm just going to say this, he is a guy who is willing to be held accountable. He's come on the show multiple times. And the last time he came on the show, he brought with him a box of all of his investments, everything, all of his investments from years back, going back years. And he said, I want you to, here, you can have these, you can look through them. I want you to show me anywhere that I have violated the law. Did he break a rule? Yeah, he broke a rule, and so did many others, especially people who are new to Congress. Did he violate any laws? No. Why? Because he didn't do anything wrong. But people in the Republican Party, some people just don't like the guy because goodness knows he's been a city councilman, he's been a state rep, he's been a state senator, and now he's a United States congressman. Some people just hate winners. Some people are jealous of winners. That's a shame because Pat Fallon's a winner, and I guarantee you we are going to get John Cornyn out of office. If you don't believe me, just weeks after U.S. Senator Cornyn joined with that gang of 20 to approve the red flag laws and all this nonsense legislation, he went to speak to the Republican state convention, and this is what happened to him when he went to the Republican state convention.
Speaking of our Second Amendment, you know, when tragedy strikes, the left's knee-jerk reaction is to say we should confiscate guns of law-abiding Texans.
He's getting jeered
Beto,
right
to
now.
his credit, actually said the quiet part out loud. They're coming for your ARs and your shotguns. I mean, they probably would confiscate your air rifle and your BB gun if they could too. But here's my guiding
Can you hear
principle.
the jeers, the boos?
Make sure good people have guns and that bad people don't.
Yeah, good people have guns and bad people don't. How exactly do you do that? Through your red flag laws? Well, shortly after John Cornyn spoke, we passed a resolution on the floor of the convention, which basically was a resolution against the Gang of 20 gun control bill, and it reads, we reject, let me go back to, sorry about that, it said we reject the so-called bipartisan gun agreement, and we rebuke Senators John Cornyn and the rest, and there it is. Okay. This is why being a Republican is, in my opinion, so effective, because we do hold our office holders accountable. And I do this show because I want to highlight those Republicans in name only, people who claim to be a Republican but act completely different when they get elected. And during the primary, I work as hard as anyone to try to get those people out of office and put in true conservatives in office. And if someone can get through a primary, and if they can win, they get through the crucible of a primary, as I like to say, well then, they are then our nominee. Those of you who say, well, I'm a libertarian because I'm just tired of all the people who say one thing and do another. Because these people come into office and they try to they tell me what I want to hear, and then they get in office and they do exactly the opposite. Libertarians do the same thing, folks. There's not a perfect politician on the planet. As much as I love Bob Hall, and I love myself some Bob Hall, State Senator Bob Hall, he and I both know one thing. We both share a common faith in Jesus Christ, which means that we both understand that neither of us are perfect. We're always going to make mistakes. But we both have another thing in common is we like accountability. He loves accountability. He wants to be held accountable when he makes a bad choice. So rather than throwing out the party, the Republican Party is not the problem. No. The problem is people within the party who, number one, don't stand up and speak out, don't participate in creating the platforms, and number three, they get someone elected into office and they just become a sycophant for them because they know them. I've told Pat Fallon multiple times on this show, when you go off the reservation, I'm going to call you on it. Same thing I've told to Bob Hall. We can hold our elected officials accountable, and the Second Amendment is one of those places where we can do that. I encourage you to vote because it is voting season, and make sure you vote early. Not vote early. Vote on Election Day. That will ensure, hopefully, that your vote won't be stolen. I'm just saying that because Hillary Clinton has already said that the 2024 race, she's already calling that it is going to be stolen by the Republicans. She's already calling that. That's Hillary Clinton. Now, I don't think that she's going to be pushed off of YouTube for saying that. But if I said something like that, I'm sure that that would be a violation for some reason, even though I'm just quoting what I can't, if I had said it, but I didn't say it. Hillary Clinton did. All right, all that to say, all right, we're going to talk about the Fourth and Fifth Amendments on the next show and how the platforms, what the platforms say about them. It'll be a short show. That'll be a good thing. But you need to know what that says. And then we're going to talk about other things like education, taxes, the military, U.S. defense, and all of that. Thank you for being with me today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Blessings to you all.